so glad you shared that with us.
Stand out of the way.
The theme that I will be deepening a bit today is the theme that comes directly from A Course in Miracles. And it's a brief statement, but it carries great import. And that statement is, I have given everything I see. It's right in line with the affirmation that you just gave us. I have given everything I see the meaning that it has for me. A Course in Miracles tells us that we live in a meaningless world, that everything is just neutral, and we give it a meaning. It has no meaning other than the meaning we give it. We are in control of deciding who is, who they are, and what is what we say it is. And what we want more than anything is to be right. We want to observe the world, make a decision or a judgment about a piece of what we're seeing, and we want to be right about it. If I decide that someone is not my friend, trust me, I'm not going to be looking for evidence that looks like that person is friendly. I'm only going to look for evidence of places where that person looks suspicious, so that I can be right about the fact that that person is not my friend. I have known many women in my ministry years who have for a lot of years been seeking to create their perfect partner. I'm sure I've met some guys too who are trying to create their perfect partner, their significant other. And they do all of the affirmations for it, and many of them, I don't know if any of you have done treasure mapping. Treasure mapping was very, very popular for many years in the New Thought movement and Unity, Science of Mind, any of the communities where they were teaching the power of the mind and the law of attraction and the law of personal creation. And so these boards that people would make would just be a piece of poster board, and you would clip out pictures from magazines. And if you were trying to create a tall, dark, and handsome guy in your life, you would cut out pictures of tall, dark, and handsome guys, and you would put them on your treasure mapping board. If you were trying to create prosperity in your life, you would cut out pictures of really beautiful houses and really expensive cars and jewelry and anything that looked like prosperity. And with many of these women who I was counseling back in my early days, they were like, I just don't understand it, Reverend Carlos. I don't get it. I have been affirming the perfect partner for 11 years now. I've been alone. For 11 years, I've wanted a mate. I've wanted a significant other. And for 11 years, regardless of how much I pray, regardless of how much I affirm, and regardless of what I put onto the picture board to image in, I have not created a partner yet. And I begin to ask them questions. I take them into their herstory. In your herstory, what was your experience with men? Have you had a significant other before? Have you been married before? What I found out with most of those women is that they had had relationships with men before, and many of the relationships they had started out wonderful. He was a really good-looking guy, he had a really good job, and he always put his best foot forward when we dated. He showed me the best of him. But once I got involved and got connected and gave myself over to the relationship and became his woman, he changed. He became not as friendly. He stopped putting his best foot forward. It was diametrically opposed to when we were dating and when we were engaged, as it was 2 weeks after we got married. He was just a different person. I felt like I had been tricked. I felt like I had been roped in. And so, well, what are your feelings about him? How do you feel? Does he still live inside you? Yes. And it boiled down with many of these women. The bottom line was, although I'm treasure mapping, praying for and affirming a partner in my life, the bottom line truth in their heart of hearts, the truth statement that they lived in their depths was, I don't trust men. I don't trust them. I have been hurt by so many men. And before I was hurt by men, I was a little girl hurt by boys. I don't trust them. And so I said, well, do you realize that what's going on deep inside of you is canceling out the effectiveness of all of your prayers? Because deep down inside, you want to be safe. Deep down inside, you don't want to be hurt. You don't want to be conned, and you don't want to get roped in. You don't want to get tricked by never really knowing who it is you're dealing with, because they might only be putting their best foot forward, and at any minute, the hatchet might drop. And so I told him, in order for what the universe is giving you is what you deeply want, not what you say you want or appear to want on the outside. You see, because it's the deep places of feeling, and it's our core beliefs that deep down, many times our core beliefs are completely unconscious and subconscious. And so if deep down inside I am afraid of a relationship with a man, it doesn't matter what is coming out of my mouth. It doesn't matter how many picture boards I put up. It doesn't matter how many dating sites I go on. I can go to speed dating things and I can meet 30 guys in one night. But as I sit there consciously thinking, I really want a relationship, inside I'm thinking, the safe place for me is to be alone, because I have been hurt before. Now, I've looked at my life, and I've looked at many times where I was saying out of my mouth that I wanted something, and I wasn't getting what I was saying I wanted. And I was praying, and I was affirming. I was doing this once about an opportunity to have a gig in California. There was a very wealthy man out there, and he had heard me preach, like in many places in the United States, and he offered to build me a church in Los Angeles, a 2,000-seat church. He knows people from all over. He said, you will fill that church, and this is what I will be able to pay you, and you will get this much vacation. And he described something that sounded like, whoa, that would be heaven on earth. And so I started affirming that that would occur. And it wasn't occurring. Many things started happening in my own life why it wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right time. And then when it was the right time for me, he was flying all over the world, so you have to wait until I get back to California. And it just was missing. And so I had to get honest with myself, and I had to say, the universe isn't blocking this. Something in you, Carlos, is blocking this. So I want you to look at this, meditate, and go deep down inside and figure out, why would you block this at a deep inner level? Why would you block this? And I got clarity. One of the pieces of clarity I got was, it would take me away from everybody I love on the East Coast. I would no longer be living near my grandchildren and my children. I would no longer have easy access to my mother. And the biggest thing was, I don't trust me. I don't trust me to make that kind of money. I don't trust me to have that kind of a situation presented to me. I don't trust him that he is offering me this with no strings attached. And so I looked deep down inside. I didn't trust this. And most of it was, I don't trust me. I don't trust me to go from making very little money to suddenly be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And the reason why, it's based on my history. Because when I was in my 20s, and I was an actor and a singer and a dancer in New York, and I was also an author and a poet and a painter, I sold my paintings for $5,000. I was making so much money in New York doing a radio soap opera and commercials, and I had all this money coming in, and I had never experienced having that kind of money. And one of the things I did with that money was waste it and party. I partied so hard. I partied with that money, and I gave away that money, and I wasted that money. And so suddenly, I'm being presented with way more money even than that. And when I looked inside and looked in the mirror, I said, Carlos Wayne, I do not trust you to be making no 300 grand. Do you remember what you did when you made 100 grand? You partied like it wasn't no tomorrow, dude. You partied like partying was going out of style. And so now you're going to be in California without your mother governing you, without people who know you, watching you and pulling you in. You're going to be out there on your own, speaking to 2,000 people, looking like Mr. Big Stuff. And why would he be giving this to me? He claims it's because he has been changed by my ministry. That can't be all. I've had a lot of people give me stuff like it was a gift, only for me to find out later they were prepaying me for something they were going to ask me to do later. I've had people give me money and then wonder why I wasn't entering into a relationship with them. And I said, I didn't know this was a red light kind of a thing. Because your letter said it was because of my ministry. It didn't say because if I give you this, you will start cuddling up next to me and going out on dates with me. And so why are you livid that I won't go to the movie with you? Well, I would think after all I did for you, that going to dinner with me and going to a movie with me is not too much to ask. You know, you should have wrote that in your note. I give you this money, which is not really a tithe. It is to pay to own a piece of you. I mean, put me on a block and say it out loud, if that's what you're doing. And so looking deep inside of us is really an essential thing. The universe is never denying us anything, but we are denying ourselves things, and it's good to find out if we're denying it because we don't feel worthy, or if we're denying ourselves things because it's just not what we really want. Because if I want to be around my family, and I feel supported by being with them, and I know I need my mother to periodically go, boy, you need to rein it in. So to live away from all these people was deep down inside a frightening thing for me. But we have given meaning to everything. If we are both watching the same news channel, if we're watching the same program, none of us are having the same experience of that program. We are all interpreting that program through our own set of core beliefs and ideas. None of us are living in the same reality. As cozy as the idea might seem, we are living in the reality of our own perceptions, we are living in the reality of our own core beliefs, and we are living in a reality that wants us to be right about the way it is. And so, in a meaningless world, I can give any kind of meaning to it that I want. I know that most of you have heard this, if not from me, you've heard it from others, about a Chinese coin that has a symbol on one side and it has the exact same symbol on the other side, but the Chinese give two different interpretations of the symbol. One interpretation is danger, something's wrong, something's negative, and the other interpretation is opportunity. There is an opportunity for me here. I told you that my mother and my aunt, Lillian, they both worked together for years, and they worked in the armed services, and they worked in school systems, and they worked in corporations. And their work was to identify and to do all they could to eliminate sexism, racism, and homophobia in the armed services, in the school systems, and in the major corporations of the United States of America. Well, when they first got there and began their work, I picked them up from the airport. And when I picked them up from the airport, my mom was giggling like a little kid. She was so excited, she was so happy. and my Aunt Lillian was in the back seat, so angry she could barely breathe. And I said, it was as though they had been at different places. It was so Mom had been to Disneyland, and my aunt had been to hell. But they had both gone to the same place to do the same work. And as they began to share in the car, what it was the interpretation that my Aunt Lillian read from what was going on was danger, 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 negation, negation. I had no clue there was that much racism and sexism and homophobia in corporation and in schools and in the armed services. I had no idea. There's so much, I don't know what we can do with it. And my mother's in the front seat giggling, going, I'm going to have work for the rest of my life. Because there ain't going to be no end to this. Woo, Carlos. Them people are something else. I mean, they ain't got a clue. I'm so glad I got this contract. Boy, we are going to be working for years off this one contract because they ain't nowhere near getting ready to give up none of that mess. So my mom read it as opportunity. My aunt read it as danger and something negative is going on. My mom saw that something positive was going on. Number one, that she was invited to be there. That the corporations were inviting her to be there to do something about their sexism and their racism and their homophobia. And that the school systems were doing the same thing. And that the armed services were ready to have someone come in and do something to affect change. And so my mom was excited about the invitation and excited about the abundance of opportunity for employment. My aunt became angry and afraid. Afraid at the intensity of it all. So whereas my mom saw it as a positive thing, my aunt saw it as a negative thing. So what we do is we interpret everything around us in the world as either being positive or negative. My experience that I shared with you of my mom and my Aunt Lillian are just one little microcosm, and you're living your own microcosms, and I'm living my own. That there are places, there are people, there are types that we judge to be negative. And there are people, there are experiences, and there are types that we judge to be positive. And either way, we want to be right in our assessment. Jesus says to us, do not judge by the appearances of things seen. And what he means is, you don't really even know what's going on behind the picture that's being presented to you. Like the women earlier, they didn't know what was going on behind the mask of that person dating them, that person giving them an engagement ring. We can't tell by the appearance of things what's going on behind it, but we can determine for ourselves, am I going to look at this as a negative or as a positive? Like something's wrong, or like there's some opportunity here for me to forward heaven on planet Earth. Well, as a minister, I feel like my mom. Like I got work I can do until the day I drop. I can be a minister until the day I drop dead. Because the development of the God mind, I look and I go, wow, there's great need for my work still. I remember about 15 years ago when I was the pastor of Hope Church, I told the congregation, they were always talking about, one thing I noticed about my congregation for a while, they loved me, they loved hearing me, and very few out of the many ever did any of the homework that I gave them. I'd come back Sunday, who remembers the homework assignment I gave last week? And I might have 3 people raise their hand. And well, how many of you were here last week? Stand if you were here. And you know, all these people would stand, and I said, you don't remember the homework. So I'll bet you didn't do it if you can't remember it. And they go, oh, we love you so much, we love you so much. I'll get on that, I'll get on that. And just last week I was at home. And I had a wonderful opportunity of standing on the platform and going, who remembers the homework I gave you last when I was here? And not a single soul remembered the homework. I said, that makes me so happy. Because it's going to be my good pleasure to give it to you again. Remind you again. And so at one point, they all stood up. They were affirming me on my birthday 1 year. And we want you to know we love you so much. We want you to know, we want you to know. If we could give you anything, truly, what would that be? And I said, put me out of business. I'm a reminder. That's what a minister is, a reminder that reminds you of the great power that you have within you to create the world of your own dreams. I come to remind you that you are not alone. You're not standing on your own power. All of the power in the universe, all of the power in the universe is conspiring to bless you. Your word is law. You get to decide what stuff is. You get to call it what it is, and you get to be right about it. So if you really, 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 really love me, I want you to know that the ultimate thing I want y'all to put me out of business. I want you to get to a place where you don't need a preacher. Where all we do is come to Hope Church and party every Sunday. I don't need to speak because no one needs to be reminded because everyone is on purpose about remembering. Everyone is doing their work. You know, many churches are like that guy that went to the healing pool for 38 years. He dragged us up to the healing pool. It was a pool that when the angels came down and they troubled the waters, the first person to get into the water was going to be healed regardless of what the appearance of dis-ease was. And so this guy crawled there for 38 years and he never got into the water to be healed. He was not able to walk. One day, he's laying there by his cot, and all of a sudden, a shining being starts walking to him, walking close to him. He says, I've never seen a light like this shining out of anybody. I know that God has sent this person here to get me into the water. I know it. And somebody said, oh, that's Yeshua. That's Yeshua ben Joseph. That's Yeshua ben Joseph. He's got a big reputation. He touches people and heals. He's a great rabbi. He's the most awesome rabbi in Jerusalem. Yeah, he can help. And so Yeshua goes over to this guy and says to the guy, do you really want to be healed? And the guy raises his arms up like, when I tell him yes, he's going to pick me up. And so he says, yes! And instead of picking him up, Yeshua goes, get up. If you really want to be healed, get up. Now there was something evidently about the way Yeshua said that this guy who had been lame for 38 years, what he did was he started giving excuses. Because even in the presence of God, we give our excuses. It's like, oh, I want to be healed, but as you can see, I can't walk. So by the time I drag myself close to the pool, other people are running. I even once almost got into the pool, but some dude literally ran across my back and jumped in. He got healed, and here I am. You know, I'm not as fast as these fully equipped people around me. Do you realize that I have begged people for years and no one has assisted me? If I had some help, I could make it. But people are so busy wanting their own healing that they don't care about me getting mine. All these things I have said and that you have said. The reason why I'm not glorious is because someone hurt me or someone didn't help me. I didn't have good education when I was a kid. We were poverty-ridden. I came from a dysfunctional family. I loved Marianne Williamson. I first met her when she was 28 years, and she said, quit bragging on the fact that you came from a dysfunctional family. Drop that alibi. Everybody came from a dysfunctional family. There are no functional families on planet Earth. It's a dysfunctional planet. And so don't feel special that you've been hurt and that you didn't have proper guidance. Don't feel special that your parents acted out. It's a dysfunctional planet. And therefore, all families are dysfunctional. The ones we're looking at and wishing we had been, I wish I had been born in that family. You know why you wish that? Because you don't know what's behind closed doors. You're judging by the appearances. And they appear to be so happy. And the children appear to be so affirmed publicly, in public, in front of you. You have no clue. So anyway, our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to be in a dysfunctional world and learn not to be dysfunctional. To be a functional person in a dysfunctional world. To be a sane person in an insane world. To be a centered person in a rocked out world. To maintain our peace in the midst of all these pictures of war and fighting and isms. Our mission, should we choose to accept it and are willing to do the work required to attain it, is what Jesus calls being in the world, but not of the world. Where you're in the midst of all this, but you don't let it define who you are. You don't let the world define who you are. You define who you are from the highest possible place in your consciousness that you're able to arrive at. In the first Genesis story at the creation, it says that God is creating. How God creates is God just speaks. God says, let there be. And then there is. And you notice, like in the first creation, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God said, it is good. At every phase of creation, God said, it is good. He didn't say something's missing. Okay, we got light, but okay, so we got the light separate from the darkness, so this ain't good. We need something else. Oh, water. Okay, yeah, well, we'll put some water in there. Let there be water. There is water. It still ain't good. Something's missing. And then, oh, maybe we need some trees. Maybe we need some animals. Maybe we need some birds. Maybe we need some people. No, God didn't wait until the last creation to go, oh, now it's good. Now it's good. Those first 6 things I created, something was definitely missing. But now we're all covered. It's good. No. At every phase of creation, God said, it is good. In other words, didn't look at anything as though it were negative. It's amazing to me to know that the creator of all that is, the spirit of all life, is love. And that this spirit, energy that I call God, has never once been ticked off at me. Has never once. I grew up in a church that programmed us to believe we could tick God off at the drop of a hat. We could make God so mad that God would take away our health, take away our prosperity, take away our good. We could make God so mad that not only is God willing to kill us, but to kill us slowly over a period of 1,000 years in a place called hell. God is love. And so having grown up with that programming, I am so grateful that I've gotten control of my own mind and snatched it away from my Pentecostal programming. And I stand here knowing I can't do a doggone thing to tick God off. And the flip side, I can't do a doggone thing to make God happy. God is love. God is joy. I can't make God be joyful. God is joy itself. I can't make God happy. God is happiness. So I can't tick God off. And I can't make God happy. But who am I making happy then? If I'm not giving my tithe to my church to make God happy, if I'm not being loving and kind to the children of God to make God happy, if I'm not trying to be all I can be to make God happy, who gets happy? I get happy. I make me happy. But I can't turn God off. Because in all my phases of function and dysfunction, God just says, look at that little rascal. Look at him, drinking up all his money. Look at him partying like it ain't no tomorrow. Look at him wasting. God's not doing it. God said, look at that little rascal. You gotta love him. You got to love Carly. I know I do. So I can't make God mad. And you know, I keep developing a deeper understanding of that. And one thing that's helped me in my last 4 years of life is that I bought a puppy for my sister Crystal, who died before she could. When I bought the puppy for her, she had pneumonia. But before she could get over the pneumonia and receive the puppy, she had an asthma attack and died. So I ended up with this puppy. I had named the puppy for my sister. I said, he's a little dog that's going to stay little, and his name is Keeper, because I want you to always keep him. Well, I ended up with Keeper for 4 years. Keeper's a handful. And Keeper has not once made me mad. He's not once upset me. I bought a new couch. That couch was less than a day and a half old. When Keeper decides, I'd rather poop on there than on my pads, and proceeded to start pooping on my new couch. I bought a new rug, an expensive oriental rug that I planned to have forever. Keeper looked at that rug and said, wow, that's a really big pee pad. And started peeing all over the rug. We have come in the house, and Keeper has somehow gotten up on a chair, dragged a garbage bag off of the counter, and tore into it. And I've walked through the door and couldn't even, had to push my way in, because both garbage bags are now spread all over everywhere. And I've never been mad at Keeper. Every time I look at Keeper, I go, you sure are a handful. You little rascal. Nothing you could possibly do could make me not just be bubbling over happy for you. Well, if I can, I'm just a regular old human being going through the process. If I can feel that way about a dog, I can't imagine God doing anything other than that with me. Look at that little rascal. He sure is a handful. And ain't nothing he could ever